What if I told you the iPhone was actually invented in 1994
What?
by a group of renegade Apple engineers? They had touchscreens, emojis, and mobile apps 13 years before Steve Jobs ever stepped on a stage. This is the story of General Magic, the most important failure in Silicon Valley history.
Basically, Silicon Valley is a nickname for the southern region of the San Francisco Bay Area in Northern California. It is the undisputed global headquarters for high-tech innovation and social media. Think of it as the holy land of the IT industry.
In 1989, Apple was struggling to find its next big thing after the Macintosh. Mark Porat, a visionary within the company, convinced the CEO that the future wasn't the desktop. It was a personal communicator.
Yeah, buddy. Lightweight.
The team they assembled, they were called the Magicians. We're talking about Andy Hertzfeld, Bill Atkinson, the guys who literally built the Mac. Plus some young engineers you might recognize. Tony Fadell, the future father of the iPod, and Andy Rubin, the guy who would eventually start Android. Apple spun them off into an independent company in 1990. The goal? Let them innovate without corporate red tape. Because, as we know, corporate red tape and Apple never go together.
General Magic didn't just build a device, they built an entire ecosystem that we basically live in today. First, there was Magic Cap. It was an object-oriented OS that used a desktop metaphor. To find your apps, you'd literally move through virtual rooms, a home office for work, a hallway for apps. It was charming, visual, and slightly literal. Then there was Telescript. This was a revolutionary language for mobile agents. It allowed your device to go out into a network, find information, and bring it back. In 1994, they were basically doing cloud computing before we even had a name for it. The hardware, partnered with Sony and Motorola, featured touchscreens with on-screen keyboards, USB precursors, and emojis.
Nice.
They were among the first to design and use them. They even had e-commerce and networked games. In 1994! Despite the genius, General Magic crashed and burned. By the time they shut down in 2002, they had burned through hundreds of millions of dollars. So what happened? Well, the ocean was too big. They built a massive, private, walled garden network with AT&T just as the World Wide Web was exploding. Their elegant garden couldn't compete with the wild open internet. Then there was the Apple betrayal. Apple CEO John Sculley sat on General Magic's board and learned their secrets, only to secretly launch the competing Apple Newton, effectively sabotaging his own partners before they could even release their product. With friends like these, who needs competitors? Also, the hardware was $800 in 1994 money. That's about $1,500 today. The battery life was terrible, and honestly, the world simply wasn't ready for a pocket computer.
General Magic is often called the Fairchild Semiconductor of the 90s. The company died, but its magicians went on to build the modern world. Tony Fadell took the General Magic blueprints and turned them into the iPod. Andy Rubin took the lessons of Magic Cap to build Android.
General Magic failed because they were right, just 20 years too early. They proved that in tech, being a visionary is dangerous if the hardware can't keep up with your brain.
Okay.
But the next time you send an emoji from your smartphone, remember the Magicians. They saw the future. They just didn't have the battery life to stay there. Stay logical. I'll see you in the next one.